Hello, and welcome to the MMQB NFL podcast. That's Albert Breer. I'm Conor. No elongated yelling and screaming today. I got a I got a 101 and a what do you call it? A respiratory infection.
A
So
101. I've never heard anybody refer to their temperature that way. A 101.
well, it's like shorthand for my wife and I now because when you have three kids and then you just keep shooting them in the head with the COVID thermometer, it's just like when everybody's
Yeah.
sick, you're just like, all right, I got a 101 in here. It's like I got a 103 in here. I got a 104 in here.
Like like the sales floor or something. It's yeah, I will tell you, brighter days are ahead. I think you actually wind up rebuilding your immunity. So you can tell your wife that too, is that, when you first have kids, it's like a shock to the system because there are all these sicknesses that you have been away from for decades.
Yes.
You're reintroduced to because little kids are like in this petri dish. And then eventually I feel like you rebuild your immunity to everything. Like there were a few years there, like every winter I would get deathly ill. And now I'm mostly fine.
Yeah, I think it's just I think it's one of those deals where it builds character. And I feel like I'm in the middle of like a Spartan race underneath the barbed wire. But we made it through Christmas, which is good. And I hope you had a good Christmas, Albert. I hope Santa got you everything yeah. I hope Santa got you an Ohio State national championship.
I'll tell you what Santa
lying
got
about
me.
that.
What Santa got me was getting to play video games with my kids and relive. I think we talked about this last week. Relive being 9 years old again when you get a video game on Christmas and you just play it all day.
It's
So,
funny
at least
because
until the NFL game started, I got to do that.
this is my first year where we got my oldest is my daughter's 7, and she's into something called Monster High, which I don't know if you know what Monster High is, but it's essentially Barbies, but they're all like vampires more or less, and they go to like a vampire school, and there's dolls and there's games and there's movies. And so we have the Switch, and so we got her Santa got her the Monster High game. And it was funny because, I'm sitting there and the first time she's got to jump over like a gap to get something, like just stress beyond belief. And she's like, Dad, I can't. She's like, what happens if I fall down this cliff? And I was like, well, it's, it starts over again. It's fine. This isn't the end of the world. And then she just she so enjoyed the first part of the game where you get to pick your monster's hair and clothes that she just kept doing that over and over and over again. So she would pick her character, turn it off, turn it back on, restart it, and then just pick a new character. So, video games are, you never know what you're going to get. But I had a good time anyway.
Wait till your son gets the football video games and everything else, and then it'll be on.
It'll be on. I'm very, very excited about that. So this was a wild night. So we're taping this at 9:30 in the morning. It took me a minute to get to bed after 49ers Bears.
What a great game, huh?
We could start there.
I mean, legitimately awesome. Two young quarterbacks, a franchise that's on the way up. That is, I think, that is going on the road and facing this established power that, when you add it all up, what the Niners have done, it's freaking incredible. And I don't care about the schedule. I know the schedule is what it is. There are a bunch of teams that had layup schedules. New England has a layup schedule this year. They still play in the toughest division in football. And, you look at like everything that they've been through and, no Bosa, no Fred Warner, no Kittle at the beginning of the year, no Kittle last night. Trent Williams goes down on the first play. No Brandon Ayuk all year. This is also the year after their cap purge where they let go of guys like Leonard Floyd and Malik Collins and Javon Hargrave and of course Deebo Samuel, Travarius Ward. To me, last night, I used this term on Twitter last night. It was an incredible show of organizational strength. I don't want to take away from any of the individuals involved because they're all a part of it, right? Brock Purdy looks great. He looks worth the $55 million last night. Kyle Shanahan, right now, for my money, is as valuable as any coach in football. I think he and McVay are probably the two guys. You know what I mean? And there's another pretty good one in that division too in Seattle now.
Right.
But I just think last night was such a show of organizational strength when they're throwing to a tight end I've never heard of. You know what I mean? Like in critical spots, they're winning. It's just I was so impressed with the way that they played, and now they have a chance to go win the number 1 seed. I mean,
It's
people
unbelievable.
thought like this was going to be a down year for them before all the injuries. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, and I hate to be the nobody's talking about this guy because it's so dumb. I mean, everybody's talking about the NFL at literally every point of the day. But and Jacksonville Jaguars fans will probably have like a conniption if I say this, but like because they think nobody's talking about them.
Well,
But
they constantly feel that way.
yeah, which
That's
I'll
like their
get to
state of
that.
being. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just their livelihood. But I really don't think enough people are talking about the totality of what happened. And it comes down to like last night, which is just a barn burner. And then you look at the end of that game, and Ben Johnson is probably one of the three. Oh, here's how I'll frame it. Okay. I think that Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay are 1 and 1A in terms of best designers of an offense.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Ben Johnson may be 1 in terms of best situational play calling. Is that fair?
I was going to say, I thought you were going to say 1C. So
Is that a fair?
Yeah. I like
because
that, yeah.
I think
because Ben Johnson does a great job of setting you up, of playing angles, and like I don't know that Ben Johnson gets enough credit for being as good a fundamental football coach as he is.
Yes.
Because his you watch his run game and no one, and I'll be the no one gives anybody enough credit for this guy, but no one gives people enough credit for what they do in the run game. It's always creativity in the passing game. And
right.
Like, I just think like when you look at like, to me, Ben Johnson is like the marriage of fundamentals, right? Like how do we create angles and leverage by playing good fundamental football with design, and then setting everybody up. All right, I'm going to use these 3 things to set up this one thing that I'm going to pull out of my back pocket later in the game. Yeah, I mean, I think all the way around, he's, he is as good a play caller as there is in football, and we can see it with the way the Lions miss him now too.
Right, and so with that in mind, and we had that great, kind of, what do you want to call it, like a the play that set up the final play of the game for Chicago. It was like we saw a couple of them over the weekend, and I think I'm just like losing it because I'm sick. It was like a guy throws it to another guy, and then he like flips it to another player. We saw that twice this weekend. What is the name of that? Why am I like struggling with it? What's that? Not a flea flicker. No, like that, like the lateral. Like you throw it like a hook and ladder. Hook and ladder. My God. Yeah. This is don't have kids, anybody. But so the hook and ladder sets
Bills
up
had a nice hook and ladder on a 4th down too.
Yes, exactly. So that sets up the final play of the game. And if you go back, and I've watched it a couple times now, with the knowledge that I think Ben Johnson's probably the best single play caller in the NFL, there was no one open for Caleb Williams on that last play. And Salah's defense gets backed up. They get beaten around for most of this game. They're chasing their tails, and they're gutted on the injury front.
Yeah.
And they lock down the most high-powered offense in the NFL for the final play of the game. I mean, it was a capper on a great game, but it also shows like San Francisco isn't just a schedule thing. Like this team is dangerous. They're going to mess you up. And I thought that play in particular kind of encapsulated that for me, where it's like, oh yeah, this is one of the best offenses in the NFL. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's any doubt. And I do wonder, Albert. I mean, we talked about addition by subtraction all year. You were in on Houston a little bit earlier than I was. I will give myself credit, a little pat on the back for saying I thought that it was good that Houston kind of did a little bit of emotional locker room cleaning, before this season. I think that always helps. And San Francisco did it too. And I think you're seeing the culmination of that where it's just like, all right, Brandon Ayuk's not going to come. All right, door's locked. You can't come back, and I'm going to get rid of this guy. I'm going to get rid of this guy. And I'm just going to roll with vibes and what I know that I'm good at. And so you bring back Salah, and that's a big part of it. And then you have what happened last night, where it's just like all of this together.
I talked to Brock Purdy after the game too, and I honestly, I think one thing I try to get guys in these situations to talk about is like, how does this compare with other teams you've been on? And I always do. I always preface it with like, I'm not asking you to say that it's better or worse, right? Because I think that's usually where you get the best answers. And Brock, like he said to me, he goes, well, like my first couple of years in the league, we just rolled everybody, and the starters were out of the games in the fourth quarter, and he was like, that was cool. You know what I mean? Like, but he was like, this team is a little bit grittier and tougher because we've had to be, and because of the situations that we've been in where we've had to rely on so many different people and the amount of closer games that we've been in because we're depleted, because we can't roll anybody the same way. We're probably a little bit better prepared than we ever have been to go into the playoffs.
Right.
And I think that was an interesting perspective. Now we'll see what happens on the injury front. Trent Williams, I mean, look, like, I don't know what this is going to look like this week with Mike McDonald getting to game plan now against, whoever is at left tackle for them. Like with Trent Williams out, like that's a big one. And I always viewed that as like, I viewed Trent as maybe their most indispensable player. That's a tough one for them to lose.
Right.
We'll see if they get Fred Warner back. We'll see what Kittle looks like when he comes back. So there are those questions still. But man, I mean, Purdy's playing at a really high level. They're running the ball well. McCaffrey looks like McCaffrey still. And the defense isn't dominant because they don't have like their war daddies right now, but they are making plays, like you said, at the end of games. And it's a team that really has a good idea of who it is and what it is and what it's going to take for them to win on a week-to-week basis, which I think is going to make Saturday fascinating.
I think that the end of this season, and I have some gripes about
it's Austin Pleasance, by the way, is the left tackle. I wanted to say Pleasance, and I didn't want to screw up the name. But Austin Pleasance was the left tackle for the. Have you heard of him before? I hadn't.
I'm a deep film grinder, Albert. You know this, and I have a note. I have my Austin Pleasance notebook behind me. So I don't know if you can see it over there.
Do you know how, if you go to Wikipedia and career history, there's the asterisk next to when the guys are on teams, but they're never on the roster.
But they're yes,
right? Like they're like a practice squad / off season, right?
Yes.
So Austin Pleasance has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stints with teams. I think 1 or 2 of them is a repeat. Yeah. So 9 stints with teams here. He has asterisks next to 7 of them.
He's a 7-star recruit. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So that's who they had at left tackle last night, but you got to give them credit. By the way, he's from a great name for a town, Coal Grove, Ohio.
Coal Grove, Ohio, with just a bunch of black soot dusted miners with pickaxes slung over their shoulders, and then he just comes to work to deliver a victory. My last thing that I'll say about this, and then we got to move on, is the fact that what amazes me about Kyle, and Christian McCaffrey said it after the game. He said he just toys with the emotions of a defense, and he's kind of connected in a way to the game that maybe other coaches aren't. He can kind of sense that, and he can feel it. And while I think and trust me, I'm not taking anything away from the Bears. Please don't think that I'm taking anything away from the Bears. But like you had that Swift touchdown run, and he breaks a tackle way in the backfield. He breaks a tackle, at the line of scrimmage, and then he's off. But you have like this McCaffrey touchdown, I think, to get them to 28, and it was so perfectly designed and blocked. Like, it's just like, it's exactly how it should look on like practice mode in Madden. It's like this guy goes over here, this guy goes over here, this guy goes over here, and you're in. And so many of Kyle's touchdowns just look like that, where it's like, how does this look like exactly what it's supposed to look like? You know what I mean? Whereas, like, you get what I'm saying. Like, Caleb Williams will run around, go back and forth, like cross the field 8 times, and then blindfold himself and sling the ball downfield. Well, sometimes there's a difference in the type of touchdowns that occurred in this game.
I mean, you know what I think it is, though? I remember I had a conversation with Kyle years ago, and he was explaining to me some stuff about the offense, and as listeners, the loyal listeners to the podcast know, I played in a wing T offense in high school.
Oh yeah.
And
Yes.
so I remember like watching, like he in his office, he has a grease board. And so I remember he like drew a couple things for me, and so I made the comment to him, like, and he was just kind of explaining to me like the simple, and I'm sure this was so dumbed down, it's not even funny, right? Like, but because it's me in the room and not, freaking Trent Williams. But I remember like he was showing me how one thing sets up like three other things. And I made the comment to him, I'm like, Kyle, this kind of like looks to me like the wing T, because anybody who played in a wing T offense at any point in their life knows that there's like 6 different concepts in the entire offense. And then there's like 5 or 6 plays off of each of them. And the whole idea is to make everything look the same, right? Like, so inside this concept, there are 6 different things you can do, but they all look the same. So it's a ton of eye candy for the defense, where we're making you follow these 5 things and you don't know it's going to be this other thing, right?
Right.
I think that, and Kyle kind of like nodded when I said that. Kyle was like, yeah, I mean, that's football. That was his response, was like that to him, that's football. And it's just, it's the amount of things that you have put into one concept, where the defense has to, and that's the detail of it, right? Is where the defense has to defend these 3 other things, because their eyes are telling them that it could be these 3 other plays. So they have to respect those 3 other, knowing maybe it's the 4th, but they can't fully sell out for the 4th because they have to defend the other 3.
Right.
And I think that's why it looks that way. You know what I mean? Like, because you watch it, it's like, well, like there's also this other action that's going on in the line of scrimmage, or there's this action with one of the receivers or the fullback, and the defense has to respect that because that works too. You know what I mean? Like, and so when you have an offense that's being run at that high a level, it looks that way. It sets up perfectly because there are 3 other things going on within the play that set it up. So anyway, that's my rudimentary like football 101. But I think that's like when you watch Kyle's offense, that's why it looks like poetry in motion. You know what I mean? Like where you see a pulling guard and there's only one guy over there for him to block, and his feet are exactly where they're supposed to be, and the back sets him up and then cuts inside of him, and now all of a sudden he's into the secondary. You know, it's because there are 3 guys over here who are respecting something else, so they can't be out there with that one like outside linebacker who's trying to defend as the guard pulls and comes around and tries to kick him out.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
No, it's like, I don't know. It's like when your favorite TV show goes stale for like a couple episodes and then it brings you right back and you're like, oh, last night was one of those nights. Football season is in full swing, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all the action. With Underdog Unwrapped, you'll unwrap tons of promos all throughout the holidays. We've got boosts, gimme picks, deal reveals, and even some surprises sprinkled in. Now is the best time to get in the game. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like rushing yards, receptions, touchdowns, and more. Get your picks right and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. This week on Underdog, I'm looking at that Steelers-Ravens game. Do or die loser goes home, and I'm taking Derrick Henry higher than 1.5 touchdowns. He decimated the Packers last week. I think he's on a heater, and he'll continue to roll. Download the app today and use promo code MMQB to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code MMQB. Underdog. Make picks. Win money. Let's move on. I mean, we're going to hit some of the bigger moments of this weekend. And one of them for me is, let's go back to Saturday night, and the Ravens come out and they just stomp the Green Bay Packers, and Derrick Henry. I think he passed. It was funny because they had to talk. I always just think it's funny when they have to talk about O.J. Simpson on an NFL broadcast, but he passed O.J. Simpson. I think
Brady joke last night.
No. Oh, with the one glove. Yes. All right. I want to get to that.
Somebody tweeted that's quite the tribute to the Jews.
I want to talk about Tom Brady
and
in a minute.
then I texted to one of my groups and I said in Buffalo, no less. So yeah, I always think it's funny when you go to a Bills game and there's the one guy
In an OJ
who's in
Simpson,
the
yeah.
Simpson 32 jersey.
It's when it's funny to a point. Like I remember walking around and there were the Patriots Rams Super Bowl where I remember getting to the stadium and I was really hungry. And sometimes, and this is not a poor me thing, it's like just sometimes they just don't have food. And you have to get to the stadium so early for the Super Bowl that there's no food in the press box. So you got to walk around the stadium and you got to buy like a hot dog like everybody
Atlanta
else,
has good prices.
But Atlanta does have good prices.
Luckily
Yeah.
enough for you.
And I remember walking around and seeing a guy in an Aaron Hernandez jersey next to a guy in a Lawrence Phillips Rams jersey. And I was like, come on, like why?
I remember
doing this.
So I was
obnoxious.
I remember I was in college and I think I went to like a buddy of mine's party at the Mods at BC. And I saw two guys. They were at this party. This would have been like 2000. One was in a Ray Caruth jersey and the other was in a Ray Lewis jersey. And this was just as the Ray Lewis stuff was going on.
It's just like, I think there's like, I mean, whatever. I could see myself thinking that was funny when I was 17.
I mean, in 2000, I was 20, so I thought it was funny.
Right. And then,
yeah, if my kid did it, I would be like, you are not leaving the house for 3 weeks.
Yeah, there's going to be some trouble there. But so the Ravens, they ran all over the Packers, and I don't know what quite to make of that. I mean, sometimes we can scheme ourselves to death and we can wonder about what happened, but the reality of the situation is that Derrick Henry was on a heater and it was cold and probably no one wanted to stand in the way of that ice cream truck. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's as simple as that. I mean,
and when he
Baltimore
gets rolling, he's still terrifying. When they do that like little crack toss play,
yeah,
where now all of a sudden he's coming like downhill, like onto the edge, like he's still. I'm amazed by him because he's 10 years in and he's still doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's, I will say this, like from the scheme perspective, I mean, John Harbaugh said it after the game, this is probably the best receiver blocking game they've gotten in a long time. And so you don't necessarily have all those ancillary guys to come in and help you bring down Derrick Henry. It was a lot of like Derrick Henry on someone and then just exploding them. But the fallout from this is that you have the Ravens winning that game, and then you have whatever happened in Cleveland on Sunday, which was, I don't know, Albert, I would say, and this is the headline on my column, so I better believe it, one of the most inexcusable losses of the recent Tomlin era. Like, I just don't think that there's, and you can say whatever you want. You could say, well, they didn't have DK Metcalf. Well, Darnell Washington broke his arm at the beginning of the game. Well, most of their secondary was on the injury report. I don't care. You can't lose that game.
I mean, here's the other thing is like DK is also the player that you acquired because you didn't want to deal with George Pickens anymore.
Right.
And now you have a problem with DK that has nothing to do with football. And look, like I don't want to get in. We don't need to relitigate the fight with the fan, right? I think we all have thoughts on the fan after that press conference he held.
Did you watch it?
Did you?
No. No. Why are we giving this person oxygen? What did he say?
It was so bad. It was like it was just. It was like he started crying. He said, "If there's one thing I'm not, like, if there's two things that make me recoil." It's abuse of animals and racism, I think was the two things, right? So,
okay.
And then like he was kind of in tears and like he said something about, kept calling him DeKalen, which, is his full name for people who don't know.
Right.
And the whole thing was he was calling him by his full name. Like, I mean, going back to when DK was on the Seahawks, because he figured out that DK didn't like that. Right. So anyway, it was just kind of like this really weak attempt at being the victim.
Yeah.
And
anyway,
please, DK, do not pay him off. Please don't. Like, I would really like.
Is he threatening to sue? Is he?
I mean, you don't hire a lawyer if you don't, right? Like his lawyer was up there with him. So
good God.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
please don't pay him off. We don't need that stuff rewarded.
No. But on that front, right? the and I'm not going to put this on Tomlin because I think a head coach takes way too much blame for weird shit that has nothing to do with what he's doing. However, I think Jay Glazer and I saw NFL Network report this too, that DK and this fan had an incident in Seattle,
yeah.
or when he played for the Seahawks,
Mm-hmm.
and all team security was alerted to this. Like, they knew that this guy was under his skin and that was an issue. How do you not have some sort of a buffer back there between, and especially when he starts going over there? Like, nobody's got eyes on that. I don't know. I mean that's
it's
not
also
something.
I mean, like, to be fair, it's also on DK.
It is. It is.
Like, I mean, that guy's trying to get under your skin. It can't be that hard to avoid. It just can't be that hard to avoid it or block it out. Like,
right.
You have way more important matters than some dude in a blue wig. Like, you don't, like, it's.
But there is that the stress of the game, the impact of it all, the emotions,
I get
the
that.
adrenaline,
I get that. But like, I think that would be a little more excusable if this fan was acting that way out of nowhere. Like, that's the other part of it. When it's it's coming. Like, this fan is going to be parked here and is going to be trying to get after me.
Right.
So I need to do everything I can to just block it out. Like, that's sort of on you, like, too. Like, and I'm not absolving because I think the fan is a jackass, like a first-class jackass. And so, like, I'm not absolving him of any blame whatsoever, but, like, you have a lot of people counting on you, DK. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You are I think the highest, or is he the highest, second highest paid player on that team, right? Behind TJ Watt. And there's responsibility that comes along with all of that,
Right.
And now, your offense looks like it cannot get out of its own way on the most important possessions of the season. I mean, how bad did they look at the end of that game, Conor?
Oh my God. And again, I will, because I hear the Steelers fans already screaming in the comments, blah, 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 blah. Okay, there was pass interference on the last play. There was.
You thought Ward interfered with him?
Yes. I mean, MVS could not.
Close. I don't know. I mean,
couldn't raise his hands above his head to high point the ball. I mean, that's his. And, I think it was bang bang enough that I don't think, Roger Goodell's calling from 345 Park and saying, I want a make or break game on Sunday.
Like,
so
I get it. I kind of feel like, to me, all right, that feels like a veteran corner knowing exactly what he can get away with.
Or, walking up to that line and towing it.
Right.
So we can agree to disagree on that, but everything leading up to it was not great. And it's one of those things where you can't get on a defense for giving up 13 points. However, it was all of Cleveland's scripted plays at the beginning of the game. It was those first two drives, right? And you're basically going to allow yourself to get out-chessed by Tommy Reese and Shedeur Sanders. And that's kind of what happened on the first two drives of this game. And again, I know we don't have TJ Watt, secondary's banged up. I get it. But then,
I mean, I think honestly, like, you look at it and it's like Cleveland didn't run the ball great.
No,
Sampson made a couple plays. He had a big one that was called back. I mean, Shedeur threw one of the most hideous interceptions you'll ever see.
Oh my God, yeah,
and wasn't good after the first quarter and a half, right? Like, and you could not do enough offensively. And it's funny, when Myles Garrett said what he said after the game, as crazy as it sounded, it kind of made sense.
So for those of you who don't know what Albert's talking about, Myles Garrett said after the game that he thought that the Steelers were more concerned about him getting the sack record than with actually running a functional offense. So
it kind of looked that way.
I saw the Next Gen Stats had that he was chipped. And by chipped, I mean there was like an extra blocker in there, right? To help on him. I think it was the third highest rate that he's been chipped this season and the eighth highest in all of football for this year. It was well over 60% of the plays. There was an additional blocker. And I mean, is that honestly, like, Mike Tomlin kind of passed it off like it was ridiculous. He did. It got serious enough that he had to answer it as a question. Do you really think that is part of it? I mean, if so, like, holy God, how stunning that would be.
I don't know, man, because like, here's the thing is like generally when you've got a veteran quarterback like that, yes, you might help some, but it's kind of on the quarterback too, to
organize your protections.
Organize your protections and know when it's coming and make sure that you're sliding appropriately and getting rid of the ball when you're hot, and so generally, and I think that's probably what Miles was getting at, was like, holy crap, you've got Aaron Rodgers at quarterback and you're still doing all of this, particularly when you've got no one, like you don't have a lot of guys who can just flat out beat coverage. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking at the game book right now. Jonnu Smith was their leading receiver, 5 catches for 18 yards. After that, Pat Freiermuth, Scotty Miller, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Kenneth Gainwell, Darnell Washington, who broke his arm, like you said, Adam Thielen. Like, I don't know. We just got done talking about the Niners, right?
Right.
And like the Niners walked away from Deebo Samuel, had the thing happen that happened with Brandon Ayuk, have been without Ricky Pearsall for a good chunk of the year. Now, they did have him back last night. Had a contract dispute with Juwan Jennings. Didn't have George Kittle last night. And I mean, I don't know. Like, I just can't make excuses for them. You know what I mean? Like you got Aaron Rodgers for this reason. And it's really hard to sit here and say like, oh yeah, like, well, they didn't have DK Metcalf. So whatever. You got to be able to go into Cleveland and win in these circumstances. And if your concern was, I don't want to be on NFL films in 20 years with Myles Garrett, having his 23rd and a half sack of the season on me, I don't know where you're at. And I'm not saying that's why, but maybe subconsciously it was, because it kind of feels that way,
And I don't know if that informed, because my big gripe in this game was like Mike Tomlin waited until the very last minute, knowing how ill-functioning this offense was. He waited until the very last minute to start going for it on fourth down. I think he had 2 or 3 other opportunities from like fourth and mid-range in the fourth quarter that he punted. And I understand the game that Tomlin likes to play where it's like field position, we're going to cause a turnover. And you could bet that maybe Shedeur was going to do something silly at some point in this game, and he already had. But I mean, you have a chance to not have to play an elimination game and rest your starters. Like, go, you know what I mean? Like, because here's my thought on this, Albert. Like, let's say you go for it on 4th and 5 at midfield. You go for it on 4th and 6 at midfield. You don't get it, and the Browns score and you lose. You lost anyway. You know what I mean? And you still have to play the elimination game anyway. Why not try to win this game right now and put the Ravens completely out of your periphery? And now you get Lamar Jackson possibly back in an elimination game. And yes, I know that you beat the Ravens.
You're talking about the spot with 5 minutes left, right?
Well, he went for it. There was one with like 8 minutes left, and there was one with 5 minutes left.
There was a 4th and 6 where they punted.
And then a 4th and 5.
Gainwell got stopped in the backfield, which was like inexplicable, like what they were doing there. But there was, so they went for it on they punted on 4th and 6 with 5:01 left. Yeah. And then they went for it on 4th and 10 from their own 20 and still wound up getting the ball back. I'm driving all the way down the field and everything else. They went for it on 4th and 10 with 2 minutes left. I'm with you. I mean, I just think in this sort of situation, especially when you don't have a lot to be fearful of on the other side, and I don't think that the Browns hadn't done much of anything offensively in the second half. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't in that situation. I don't know why you wouldn't. Why you wouldn't go for it when you've got the ball in midfield. It's just there's a lot of like head scratching things in this game that it almost felt like they were playing with that in their back pocket. Like, well, we don't have to win this one. You know what I mean? Well, you kind of do, because
you kind of do.
You got a team that's beat up, and man, like the Ravens look pretty good on Saturday night, and you do not want to be facing that. Don't you still have in the back of your head that the Ravens still have another gear that we just haven't seen yet?
Well, I don't know about that, but I
feel like I'm stupid for saying it, but I watch like these little snippets, like what they looked like when they were running over New England before they took Derrick Henry off the field in the fourth quarter, what they looked like when they were icing the game against the Packers. And it's like, that's in there somewhere. And that was happening without Lamar Jackson in the lineup. And
Right.
if I'm the Steelers, I'm like, not that I'm going to say this to my player, I'm trying to avoid that being a must-win game at all costs, you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, why would you want, and by the way, like all the Steelers fans, I don't think there are many of them left really in Tomlin's corner. I'm just, at this point, but everyone pounding their chest and saying, well, we beat them last time. You kind of didn't. I mean, there was an Isaiah Likely touchdown that was taken off the board after he had
right.
19 steps in the end zone, and he needs a 21st, according to Carl Cheffers or whoever made that call. It's ridiculous, right? And I'm going to go a step further on this. Like the respite that the Steelers had between that Buffalo game where everyone was chanting "Fire Tomlin" and yesterday included. Again, I mean, you had a win over Baltimore where a touchdown was taken off the board at a critical time. You had a win over Detroit where what, Albert? A touchdown was taken off the board at a critical time. Yep. And there was an even worse call before that when they took the touchdown off the board in the OPI call. So there was a lot of funny business going on there. And then the Dolphins. And the Dolphins trying to go up to Pittsburgh in the freezing cold, which they never are able to do. Okay? That was your swoon. That was like, oh, no, wait, we got everything under control. This team is fine. They're not fine. I mean, they lost to the Browns with the chance to put the Ravens out. I mean, hell yeah, I'm excited for Sunday night. That's perfect. This is exactly what I would want as a fan. But I think if you're Mike Tomlin, it's like, I went out and got Aaron Rodgers. I went out and got the capable offensive coordinator. I have everything that I was saying that I didn't have before. And the result is still like we make jokes about it, but he's going to finish 9-8. Like he's going to finish. Like it's going to happen.
Doesn't this feels like it? Like I wrote this morning. Be sure to check it out, everybody. I wrote this morning that this feels like the whole week's going to be a referendum on both Baltimore and Pittsburgh and where they are with their coaches. Yeah. And it's almost like a loser leaves the island game. You know what I mean? Like where. Like there's going to be so much discussion over the course of the next 6 days about where those teams are, where they've been, what they were 10 years ago. Are they capable of being that again under their current leadership? And whoever loses this game, it feels like there's going to be a heavy price to pay, you know? And I'm not saying the loser is going to fire their head coach. Don't put that in the headline, right? Like, but it does feel to me like this is a referendum game in a way where it's like whoever loses this game, there are going to be big picture questions asked, and it's going to be really hard for that team to just hit reset and run it back next year, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say this. I mean, this is whatever. Both these coaches are going to hype it up and say, this is it. This is what we live for. This is what we, work for, whatever. Chance to be in the tournament, blah, 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 blah. I'm not saying that Tomlin escapes criticism because he doesn't. I think that he's taken a brunt of unfair criticism for years while he was successful. And now in the back end, it's probably a little bit warranted, like as he gets deeper into his tenure in Pittsburgh. But you can't escape primetime. Like every one of your coaching decisions is going to be under a microscope. And I just don't think that razor's been very sharp over the last few weeks.
You want to hear the weird reality too is maybe both these teams are just fortunate Joe Burrow got hurt.
I know. Maybe both of these teams are just fortunate that Deshaun Watson got hurt, Albert. I'm just kidding. No, you're right. I mean, in a normal year, I don't know.
This is like, if I'm the Bengals, I'm like, holy crap. You know what I mean? Like, because this was the year maybe that your division's a little down and you would have had a chance to really make a run at home field and all of that different stuff, you know? Yeah. Because I watching the Bengals the last couple of weeks, it looks like their defense has come around a little bit. Like, and they don't need to be great defensively based on what they have on offense. And I mean, I don't know. I look at it and say, like, if the Bengals were in the tournament right now, I'd be tempted to pick them to go to the Super Bowl, you know?
Right. That's like my, made a similar point about the NFC South where I was just like, we should just all come together and agree to put the Saints in the playoffs, and because none of these other teams give a shit enough.
They become a fun team.
I know. It's like I'd rather watch them in the playoffs. Like I'd rather watch. I
have
the
them in like one of my
playoffs.
Little screens on the Sunday ticket.
Yeah, me too.
And I keep looking up at them, and I'm like, I shouldn't even like this would be one of those games that I shouldn't have up there. But
Yeah.
I like Tyler Shuck looks good, and Chris Olave's come alive, and like it's just like all these things are starting to come together for them. Like
They're gonna win like 7 games this year. It's gonna be great.
they would be a fun team to watch. I mean, yeah, because they're gonna play. Man, they're gonna play the Falcons next week too on a short week, so there's a chance to get 7 wins. Who would have thunk
Good
it?
Lord. Who would have thunk it? So a couple more things before we get out of here. We go from a what the hell happened in Pittsburgh, which by the way, I'm very excited about that game. It's gonna be a lot of fun. To what the hell happened
By
in
the way,
Tampa.
don't we think the better game is Niners Seahawks? Shouldn't that be the Sunday night game?
Yes.
I think they put Steelers Ravens on there because the Steelers are a legacy franchise, and I think the Steelers Ravens probably rates better, but
it rates better, and I think that there's more to it, right? There's more to it where
it's legitimately because the loser of the Niners Seahawks game is still in
the playoffs. Whereas Pittsburgh and Baltimore, you have the whole week leading up to it, right? Too, where it's like, is Lamar going to play? Is he not going to play? What's all that stuff.
Actually, that's a good point too. I hadn't thought about that, but if this is to give Lamar a better chance to play, then that's good. Although
imagine being
the
hurt.
Seahawks really got hosed here because they're traveling back from Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And now are going to have to get on the road on a short week again. And the Niners have like a war on Sunday night, and they were just on a short week.
Yep. I mean, it's like the one time, though. It's like the one time this year the 49ers have like a bad net rest differential. So sometimes you got to. I mean,
is that right? Okay.
Well, it's not the one, but their net rest differential is really good this year. So speaking of the Seahawks, they beat the Panthers. Which sets up a do or die Panthers Bucs matchup because the Bucs lost to the Dolphins. I'll just say one quick thing about that game. Carolina was in it for it. That was not a 27-10 game. It was not. Like Carolina was in this thing until like late in the third quarter, and it was like a weird face mask.
Seahawks started turning the ball over,
thing off, and then here we go. So Darnold didn't look great. I think Ejiro Evero is so good, and I mean, I've been pounding the table for him for 5 years now. He was the one reason the Broncos and that Nate Hackett year that they didn't fall completely off the cliff. And I think he's been great in Carolina. He just made some bad choices in terms of where he went. But if we're talking about those young defensive geniuses, I think he's right there in the mix with that group. But so we have,
we left him off the list. I feel bad about that now that you talk about it. He's in there with the Halfleys and the Burks and the Campanellis and Shulas and Minters. Yeah.
I absolutely think so. But so that game happens, and then whatever the hell happens to Tampa. I mean, this was a bad week to see the Dolphins. The Dolphins don't care. Mike McDaniel's got a second week to game plan with Quinn Ewers.
Baby.
I mean, he
looks good.
Every time I turned on that game, and I kind of had it like, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to watch every game today, and I'm in the process of doing that. I started first thing in the morning, but every time I turned on that game, he had ample time in the pocket, and he was throwing to wide open guys. And part of me is like, what's happening here? Like, why is this happening?
I will say, so I've been aware of him since high school, because he was a huge recruit for Ohio State. Then he winds up transferring, all that stuff. I got to know him a little bit before the draft too. I would say this, just why I've watched him play a lot. And the one thing about him, like now physically, like you wonder how would he hold up playing full season, but watch how easy every throw looks for him. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just one of those things where like usually a guy that size, you watch them play and in the pocket, they've got to wind up and put their body into it and they need to have perfect form to get the ball where they need it to go. And this guy has always been able to just kind of flick his wrist and the ball goes where he needs it to go. You know what I mean? And I don't know, like I watch him play and it's like, there's something there. I don't know that he'll ever be anybody's long-term starter. I mean, you'd be going like kind of 3 steps forward in saying that, but I feel like he looked better yesterday than Tua did this year in that offense, which is crazy to say because of what Tua's making, but Am I off base in
Wait
saying
until
that?
Mike McDaniel gets his hands on Malik Willis this offseason. Hello.
Ooh,
You like that one?
I
You like
hadn't
that?
even thought of that.
But
Oh,
I just looked it up. Okay. Um,
dude, you just, yeah, man.
um,
Yeah.
Quinn
Malik Willis
Ewers.
looks awesome. Genuinely looks awesome, by the way.
I know he's so good.
Those first two throws he made in that game on Saturday night were like, whoa. You know what I
Fabulous.
mean? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
But so Quinn Ewers was under pressure. And this is according to NFL Pro. I just looked it up. On 33% of his throws. That was 15th among all quarterbacks. And like, what has happened to and I can hear our commenters being like, finally, like they're saying it out loud. My God. I mean, this Buccaneers defense has been among the worst in the NFL over the last like 6 weeks of the season. What is going on? Like, and it's not just Baker. Like, Baker, and this is the other crazy part. The least pressured quarterback in the NFL on Sunday was Baker Mayfield. And we still took 3 sacks. I mean, what? It was just like, I don't know, man. This is 50 dropbacks. Like, it just didn't, it doesn't look right.
So
I don't know.
I have a couple thoughts here. First, when they were really playing well, that was when the older receivers were out. You know what I mean? When Baker was playing really well, and they were featuring Emeka Egbuka.
Well, but
And
Egbuka, I think Albert was also at the beginning when he was really hot, got to play off of Mike Evans, though. I mean, the real, like the ascent, I think, was also alongside Mike Evans a little bit too. I mean, I think that was part of it.
It was, but like I do feel like maybe, I remember this is a story that goes back to like 2008, and it was when the Dolphins got rid of Jason Taylor, right? And I was talking to somebody who was high up there in Miami, and it's like, well, why would you do that? And I think Jason Taylor went right to the Jets, right? Like to go play for Rex Ryan. And like what this executive told me was, well, Bill Parcells has always had this thing about quote unquote progress stoppers, right? And he's like, the theory is that you hold on to a guy for so long, and he's such a good player for you and such a good guy in the locker room that eventually, like, you just don't want to let him go, and he gets in the way of some young player moving into the role that he should be in, right? And the player that they felt like Jason Taylor had gotten to the point where he was stopping the progress of, not by anything he was doing, but just because he was on the roster, was Cam Wake. And Cam Wake wound up being, a all-pro player for the Dolphins.
Yep.
And so it wasn't just getting rid of Jason Taylor at an advanced age. It was, we really need to kind of clear the decks here and make the defense more about Cam Wake. And I sort of wonder if that to some degree is what's happening to Egbuka here. Because he was dynamite over the first 8 or 9 weeks of the year. And he's tailed off so badly. And as he's tailed off, Baker's tailed off. And the weird thing about it is it says they've gotten healthier, right? Like, so they get Evans back, they get Godwin back, they get Wirfs back. Like, it's just, and look, like Wirfs is out again now, but I just kind of like look at like the makeup of the team. And I wonder, did going through all of that where it showed their depth maybe also reveal something, which is that there are some older players in this team that we need to separate from. My second thought is this the cost of going through so many coordinators? Dave Canales for a year, Liam Cohen for a year. And I mean, are you now at the point where it's like, now you're feeling the loss of institutional knowledge that you had in the building,
I mean, it's all possible. And I've said this about Ben Johnson, where Detroit's fall off isn't just because you lose Ben Johnson, the play caller. You lose Ben Johnson as the guy who's going to sit down with Aaron Glenn at the end of the week and be like, here's how I would attack everything that you're planning on doing, And I think that's a big deal too. And if you lose that camaraderie and that flow and that rhythm, certainly you can, anytime institutional knowledge leaves the room, it's hard. But the fact that this team is in a play-in game similar to Pittsburgh, given everything that's happened around them, I don't know. There was the report. It's hard to excuse. There was the NFL Network report the morning of that said that Todd Bowles is, quote, certainly not in any danger of losing his job, Albert. I'm just curious what you think about this.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
let's
his
say the
name.
Panthers go
So,
out here and I don't know.
so I mean, and I'm gonna I'll give you like the background here. So he becomes the coach in, was it 2002 or 2022, right? So they go 8-9, they win the division, good start. That's Brady's last year. 23, they come back, and they at one point that year they finished 9-8, but it took them going 5-1 down the stretch to get there. So at one point they were 4-7. And I remember hearing towards in the middle of that year, like Tampa's one maybe you have to keep an eye on, right? Would Tampa
Right.
make a run at Bill Belichick if the Patriots fire Bill Belichick after the year? There were like a lot of those sorts of rumblings, and then they finished 5-1, and that quiets down. Last year, again, they finished 10-7, but it took a 6-1 finish for them to get there. So they were at one point 4-6.
Right.
And so, like, it's been this constant, like, digging, like the last 2 years, 3 years, really, they've dug themselves out of ditches, right?
Yeah.
And now, like, it's like, okay, like, do you feel like you're at that same point again where it's just not consistent enough over the course of the year? And then you look at the guys you've let go, and you let Cohen go, right? And you see what he's done in Jacksonville. You let Canales go, and there's nothing you can do about that, right? Like, those guys are getting head coaching opportunities, so whatever. But like, you go through all of that, and the problems remain the same. And I don't know. Like, this is nothing against Josh Grizzard, who I think has got a good future. But this seems to be like, do we need a spark here? And I think the world of Todd as a coach, but when you've had two guys leave and have the success that those two guys have had early on as head coaches, and you're still stuck in this rut where you're good, but you can't quite push it over the top. And I did hear what Ian said yesterday, which was something along the lines of like, well, he might win his fourth straight division title. Well, I think there's context to that too. Like, what division are you in?
Right.
Which, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's like, you're not winning the NFC West. You're not winning the AFC West. You know what I mean? Like, you're not leaping over like great teams to get there. You were over the last few years dealing with a perpetually rebuilding Panthers team that's finally got itself off the mat, the post Drew Brees New Orleans Saints, and a Falcons team that hasn't been able to get out of its own way.
At the end of the day,
and again, I think the world of what they've built in Tampa, and I still think there's a really strong foundation there. But I think, like, I thought this is the year they break through to get to the Super Bowl, and the opposite has happened. So, I think that going from one to the other merits deeper evaluation.
It'll be interesting, right? And we don't know what the Glazers are going to do. They're predictably unpredictable, if you could say.
Yeah, they're not out front. You won't see, like, if you're watching a Bucs game, you won't see like 15 camera shots of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So speaking of out front, I have two more things I want to talk about just really quickly. So just the Bills lost to the Eagles 13-12 in a rainstorm, and they tried to go for two at the end of the game. I think they were 1 of 6 going into this game on 2-point conversions.
I would not have done that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have either. But I do wonder if some of that thought process was Sean McDermott just not wanting to play another overtime period when you're really trying to fold up the wings here and just rest everybody. And I did have some questions about the play call too. I mean, Josh Allen is exhausted after leading you on back-to-back touchdown drives, and then you're asking him to make like a touch throw in the corner of the end zone when he's kind of in ramrod mode. I don't know. I mean, to me, that was, if we're going to nitpick it, that would be my nitpick. But,
like one thing you get from the Eagles, like just watching the Eagles, there's a reason, there's a reason why they're really good in the red zone and they're really good in those tight areas. One is because of who they're practicing against, right? Like they're rugged because who they go up against in the spring and the summer is the most rugged offense in all of football, right?
Right.
Like in their own offense. So there's that part of it. They're really rugged. They're also big and long all over the place. They've got these guys. Like if you watch, like just really look at that defense when like the other team's inside the 5, right? And it legitimately, you can visually see the way the size and length of that defense shrinks the entire field. You know what I mean? Like it's just, it's really difficult to operate down there. And especially in a situation where you need 2 yards, where you can't just say, okay, like we're going to line up and push Josh Allen into the end zone. You know what I mean? Like if you've got to throw it down there, well, you've got all that length that you got to throw around, and you've got to block them, like, so
Right.
I would have just looked at it. I would have said, if I were Sean McDermott, they have 17 freaking yards in the second half. Like our defense has earned the trust to go into overtime and help us win this game. We've got the best player on the planet. Let's go into overtime and win this game. And, there's also the fact that, don't get an extra point blocked. You know what I mean?
Well, sure.
But
you can't stop Jalen Carter. That's just like,
that was insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
He still does some things that there was I don't know if you saw the sack he had in the fourth quarter yesterday, but like I think it was around Torrance. Holy crap. Did he he pantsed Torrance on that play. It was like, he didn't touch him. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
he's just out. Like Carter's talent is off the charts outrageous, but I think in that circumstance, if I'm Sean McDermott, I'm trusting my defense. I'm trusting Josh Allen. And I'm saying, you know what? They're gassed. They're on the road. These are our conditions, not theirs. We're at home. Like, let's just take our chances in overtime with, again, the best player on the planet.
Yeah, I'm not here to. We can diagnose and re-diagnose Philly's offense. They look good in stretches, and then they don't. And I think a lot of that has to do with the run game. Now, again, you can't complete. What is it? Did Jalen Hurts not complete a pass in the second half or something like that?
I think it was something like that. Again,
it was really bad.
Yards,
but
I think like Lane Johnson was just a massive loss for them.
Yeah.
Same way as like the Chargers losing their tackles. Like so much of what the Eagles are is built around that offensive line, and like that. I think that's something that they felt the last few weeks. They're going to have to win games differently than they did last year. There's no doubt. Like I think their formula now, because I don't think AJ Brown's quite what he was. Devontae Smith's become their go-to guy in big spots. I just think what they are right now. They have to lean in on, I think, what's one of the best defenses in football, and a defense that has, all pro level players at corner and Quinion Mitchell, at nickel and Cooper DeJean, at D tackle and Jalen Carter. And again, has size and strength and speed, talent all over the place. Like, I think they have to sort of play this game now where it's like, we're going to try to extend drives. We're going to bleed clock. We're going to limit possessions, and we're going to bet that our defense can make more stops than yours.
Yeah. And it's
because Vic has that group. Vic deserves a ton of credit. Your guy there, like Vic deserves a ton of credit. Cause like, I will say this, like I can remember a conversation I had with a couple people there when I was there this summer. And I said to them, I'm like, man, it's going to be great for you guys now. Year 2 with Vic, you're going to be able to hit the ground running. And they're like, what are you talking about? We're replacing half of our starting lineup. And you didn't realize that at the time, but like, he deserves a ton of credit for getting those guys up and running. They lost. You want to go down the list: Milton Williams, Brandon Graham, until he came back, of course, Josh Sweat,
right,
Darius Slay, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Like, those are important. Like, you took a good chunk out of that defense, and they're better, I think, this year than they were last year.
Very last but not least, as we say goodbye and close out, is this going to be no, it's not going to be our last episode. Well, yeah, no, it's not going to be our last episode of the year. Tom Brady might have the number 1 pick, Albert, in the NFL draft. Isn't that insane? One glove, Tom Brady.
Yeah. And shout out OJ.
Tom Brady is probably going to have to hire a new coach. He's going to pick a quarterback. I mean, how much fun is that going to be this offseason?
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I mean, I think I'll leave this little nugget here. I love Fernando Mendoza. Like, I think there's a lot of like Jared Goff type qualities to his game.
That was a great comp by you. Yes.
Yeah. I think if you watch him, like, I think that's like kind of like who he looks like to me. Don't sleep on Dante Moore. Like, I think Dante Moore at Oregon, you'll have a chance. Everybody have a chance to watch him on Thursday in their playoff game against Texas Tech, and you might wind up getting more Mendoza head to head in the semifinal. But Dante Moore, if Uncle Phil out there in Eugene can't pay him enough to get him to stay, right, like at Oregon, then I think Dante Moore has a chance to go in front of Fernando Mendoza. I'm not saying for sure. Like, I think Fernando Mendoza is the odds-on favorite, but I think Moore has a chance to catch him and maybe pass him.
Luckily for us, we'll be able to beat this to death over the next couple of months. Yeah,
the Raiders having the number one pick. How about? I mean, Tom Brady having the number one pick. You know,
and all I'll say is this:
he's getting good. Just as he's getting good at the broadcasting thing, I think he's been excellent.
I know.
I'll say I think he's been really freaking good this year. When I've been able to watch, anyway.
I'll leave you with this. Amazon documentary, Tom Brady goes to Birmingham City and tells Wayne Rooney he's not working hard enough. Now that Tom Brady, I saw
that in your column. Do I have to go watch that?
No, that was it. I mean, I summed it up. You know, that was basically it,
though,
right? No, I don't know. It was fine, right? But he tells one of the most legendary sporting figures in the history of the world, and especially in England, that he's not working hard enough. So now that Tom Brady's got the number one pick, he's got to hire a coach, maybe trade Max Crosby. I don't want to see him at any boat parties this year. I mean, if we really care, we got to grind, right? I'm here with an upper respiratory infection. I'm ready. Are you, Tom? It's a big off season.
You're not backing down.
No
white flags from Conor Orr.
No white flags. We'll see you on Wednesday, Thursday.